Hi, I'm Bulbul Ahmed. I'm a postdoctoral research associate in Computational Art Science Group at Los Alamos National Lab. Today, I'd like to talk about machine learning and cloud-based tools for geothermal discovery, exploration, and development of hidden geothermal resources. And the name of the tool is GeoThermal Cloud. And I'm presenting on behalf of Bellarmine Veselinov. He's also known as Monty. It has multiple capabilities. First of all, this is an open source cloud-based machine learning framework for geothermal exploration, which uses machine learning to discover and extract new or existing geothermal signatures in existing large datasets. It categorizes geothermal datasets and generate labels. Also, it can identify high-value data acquisition strategies or targets, fuse big data and multiphysics models, test and validate developed machine learning framework. So currently, has capability of three branches of machine learning, which is supervised, unsupervised, and physics informed. For supervised, we have deep learning and support vector machine learning. For unsupervised, non-negative matrix or tensor factorization, which are also known as NMFK and NTFK. So you can go to reference 1 for NMFK and reference 2 for NTFK, like to learn more. We have also capability of adding existing physics-based code, large code, or a small code, or even analytical solution. For now, we have just an analytical solution developed by Eric Barnes of UHGS. Basically, this equation evaluates geothermal and hydrogeology controls on regional groundwater distribution. So overall, in our geothermal cloud tools, our primary method is unsupervised machine learning. Secondary method is physics-informed machine learning, and tertiary method is supervised machine learning. So why we used unsupervised and physics-informed machine learning as our major tools in this geothermal cloud? So first of all, geothermal dataset often is sparse and lacks labeling, along with plenty of noise. And supervised machine learning often fail to handle such dataset, whereas unsupervised machine learning can efficiently handle all the problems, these three main problems, sparsity, labeling, and noise. And we use physics informed in unsupervised learning so that we can impose all known a priori knowledge through physics equations. Now, I would like to give a very brief overview of supervised, unsupervised, and physics-informed machine learning. So in supervised machine learning, it learns everything from data. It has to have um, data that has like all the input parameters and labels that can tell about what's the output of corresponding inputs. So in this case, we need prior labeling and subject matter expert or SME needed before machine learning is performed. However, it cannot discover the, uh, which is not already known, and requires large training data set. Also highly impacted by noise in the data, and most importantly, it is hard to interpret a supervised machine learning model. But mostly, if you introduce a little noise, it can disrupt the model. On the other hand, unsupervised machine learning, it basically extracts information from data automatically. It doesn't have inputs and labels or outputs differently. It has all the input and outputs in the same data set and try to learn the mapping function between or simultaneously in the all attributes. So in unsupervised machine learning, everything is attribute. And it produces unbiased analysis. So during the data labeling and um, subject matter expert is not necessary or it is not impacted by SME. Identifies features that distinguish images of animals like cats, dogs, horses, and for our case, it's geothermal features. and it categorizes data and subject matter expertise. And but we need SME after machine learning is performed. And the physics information learning, which is basically learns from data, but it can include physics equation uh, through by adding physics equation in the machine learning framework. Uh, but this is not general; it is very problem specific, and we need to include problem specific equations. Needs subject matter expert inputs related to the analyzed problem. SME needed before and after ML is performed, but it increases efficiency, accuracy, and robustness, and it requires differential programming. For example, here you can add, we have the pressure distribution and corresponding permeability. We can add flow models, stress models, and displacement models, and it can learn from all of these and predict something like pressure. So you input data like as a permeability and then provide flow, stress, and displacement models, and it can produce and it can predict pressure. So GeoThermalCloud includes smart tensors. So smart tensors is a Lano developed and patented code for matrix and tensor factorization. It can perform unsupervised and physics information learning, um, which include non-negativity and physics constraint. Uh, so that helps explainability. It's not black box model, rather than it is based on non-negativity that helps interpret the output models, and it can easily be tested and validated. And we have applied these tools for diverse sets of problem, including COVID-19 datasets to wildfire, text mining, and geothermal. And it is very efficient for large datasets and coded in Julia, which is very fast programming language than Python or MATLAB, and allows differentiable programming. And this we are actively developing it, and it has won 2 R&D 100 hours in 2021. So geothermal cloud, it includes the smart tensors, and also it can include flux, or these basically models neural networks. Uh, and we have few demonstrations on GDR. You can include like click on this link and go to our existing demonstrations. And also GitHub page, these two pages, it is actively developing. And Julia Hub, so basically the cloud-based tool is hosted on the Julia Hub. So far we have analyzed 9 field datasets and 2 synthetic datasets. And on those datasets we include geothermal, geophysical, geomechanical, geochemical, geological attributes, and covering a huge area, is mostly in contiguous US. So one is like in Nevada, Utah, California, Oregon, then Idaho, New Mexico, Texas, and Hawaii. And the two synthetic datasets, one is EGS, which is Enhanced Geothermal Systems, which we consider Utah Force dataset, and our main target is how much energy production we can use through this EGS. And the second dataset is on Southwest New Mexico geothermal systems. We use free flow trend for characterizing geothermal heat sources. So total 11 datasets. So in this dataset, or in these presentations, we'll present 3 datasets because we don't have time. We have only 20 minutes. So one is geochemistry to explore geothermal resources in Great Basin, and the second one is synthetic dataset, which is like EGS energy production for Utah Force, which uses another LAN called GeoDT, which means geothermal design tool. And lastly, we present state of the stress in Brady geothermal site, Nevada. Great Basin includes multiple geothermal reservoirs. It includes low temperature to high temperature geothermal resources, and it has been like very or extensively explored. And we have a very large data set on like basically geochemistry data set at 14,341 locations. So why geochemistry? Okay, first of all, it's easier to collect and it can be applied for knowing geothermal reservoir temperatures, conditions, and reservoir boundaries and heat source types. And also it can capture water rock interactions and water mixing. So we have data for 18 attributes, all of them related to geochemistry, three geothermometers, pH, TDS, and rest of the 13 cation or anions, including oxygen isotopes. And this column presenting the missing percentage, which means how many data are missing in the data set. You can see like no attribute has complete data set. Every attribute contains some missing percentage, and some of them into like more than 75% missing. And we had to deal with this. And so this is a very good presentation of our tools, or capability of our tool that it can handle large data set and sparse data set, and also it can generate continuous distribution. So we analyzed that data set and found low temperature, high temperature, and mid temperature signatures. And also we found what attributes dominates those signatures. For example, the low temperature signatures that is dominated by four attributes, which are boron, oxygen isotope, bromine ions, and total dissolved salt. On the other hand, the high temperature geothermal resource, those are mostly dominated by aluminum, beryllium, chalcedony geothermometer, and quartz geothermometer. On the other hand, the mid-temperature geothermal signature that is mostly dominated by magnesium and calcium ions. And also, we have validated our work with an existing Playfair analysis developed by Falls, and you can click this link to find this map. And this high prospectivity regions, this PFA map contains high prospective geothermal resources. These numbers and the numbers on our map are same, and they completely agree with each other. But the high prospectivity regions with our medium temperature geothermal resources doesn't agree that. Okay, now how do we select signatures? We saw in this previous work, we just showed three signatures. Anyway, for better understanding, please read the references. So here we use signature based on fitness and robustness and R2 square, and this plot shows that. So here we can also calculate the R2 square value of the variance, everything. So whatever you find, you can also quantify the uncertainty. So here you can find the R2 square for different number of signatures. We calculated this signature for up to 10 signatures, but we found only 3 signatures. And also we calculated predictive uncertainties using support vector machine learning. Here we use different levels of training data, 10% to 90%, and including the noise level, we added noise levels and quantified their accuracy. So yeah, it has diverse capabilities. And then, so we also quantified the continuous distribution of data. You can find those in those GTR repositories. Please, we request you to see that. And next, we applied the same NMF method on geothermal design tool synthetic dataset, which is Lionel developed. It accounts for well system design, natural fractures, hydraulic fractures, state of stress, and stress-dependent fracture properties. So GeoDT is integrated in the GeoThermalCloud to find optimal behaviors. So here the goal is find relation between site conditions and production transients, identify site parameters that increase energy production, characterize the impact of a state of stress, and efficiently predict the system behavior. So here GeoDT produces data, you see a lot of data is basically finding needle in the haystacks, but eventually NMFK can find the needles for you. Here, like for this data set, we have more than 90 parameters, and so, but mostly this based on stress, effects, well designed, strength. So these input parameters has diverse sets of parameters. So we use this dataset on NMFK and we found how in parameters uh, found signals. We found 4 dominant signals and each signal uh, specified or can tell us about certain range of parameters. So for example, on signal B, easiest design parameters are important. On signal B and D, well spacing and well orientations are crucial. On signal uh, B, the wall diameters on. We can also expect rock temperature having crucial roles, and that is presented by signature C. So the GeoDT model outputs are production enthalpy and for electrical power and production enthalpy. So here you can see how the 4 signatures are related to the produced electrical power. One is with well orientation and other attributes, and the red one, which is the well spacing, and the other two are, which is the dominance is in the lower magnitude, but they can tell about stress and state of stress and system and reservoir attributes. So overall, each signature can tell us what parameters are important and what parameters are not that much dominant on that signatures. So yeah, you can see this. So overall, ML can separate the impact of different physical processes in the GeoDT model outputs, and it can identify interrelationship between GeoDT model outputs and inputs. And also, if we identify that well spacing and well orientations are identified to be very important for energy production and induced seismicity. So yeah, we have also published one paper. Please look at this. And the final case study of this presentation will be Brady geothermal site in Nevada. Here we try to understand the state of stress. Here we basically calculated the Coulomb shear traction estimated at 1000 meter depth. The dark color represents high Coulomb shear traction on optimally oriented normal faults as a result of slip. And from previous study, we found that 2:1 ratio is the most important. What is ratio? Ratio is the step over length over step over width. So we considered 8 ratio, this 8 ABCD to H, and it was the data was generated by Drew Seiler and it was published. So originally stress ratio at the site are unknown. And so a series of stress ratios are modeled and we used our method NMFK to find the best suitable stress ratio. And we found 2:1 ratio is the most probable one, and it was also found out by the previous studies. Here you can see the signatures, like we found 6 signatures, and we can also find how these types of oil are or define those signatures and the stress ratio. So this is all I had today for this tool. So overall, we applied 8 dataset for this geothermal cloud and 9 for field dataset, 2 for synthetic. And for all these cases, we extracted meaningful information and utilized that model for further analysis and better understanding of the system. We were able to provide physical explanation also. So we hope our geothermal community can utilize these tools for their work too, and we would be more than happy to assist anyone who would like to utilize this. And these are 3 important references for geothermal cloud. One is for NMFK, number 2 is for NTFK, number 3 for GeoTT. And finally, we would like to thank GTO of the Department of Energy for providing fund to us. Thank you all.